In the last session, we stopped at SNS creating a notification service through Terraform. Now, in today's session, and this will be the last video where we'll see how do we create an S3 bucket and a DynamoDB using Terraform. Now, we have created a simple code for the sake of demonstrating the deployment part. I'm going to upload this code into my GitHub and I'll share the link in the video description. You may feel free to go and download that code and try it for yourself. The entire code that I've shown in all the sessions so far, I'll upload this in the GitHub today and I'll provide the link in the video. Right, let's start. So what are we going to do today is we are going to create an S3 bucket over here. So I'll create a file s3.tf. Now, what are we going to actually do? Why do we need S3 bucket? And another thing that we are going to create is a DynamoDB.tf. So these are two resources that will spin up today using Terraform. Now, what are we actually trying to do? So in this example, we'll just create a simple resource, okay, for S3. And in S3, why we are going to create is S3 to demonstrate how the code build and deployment works. Now, I'm not going to go to extent of creating code pipeline and all that will be a very extensive course. However, but I want to give you a brief and give you an idea. If you want to explore more and exploit your knowledge on Terraform, then you should be able to do it. And that's the reason I thought I'll in this video will demonstrate to you how the code build and deployment works with some simple sample code that we have developed to demonstrate how the data gets stored onto S3 and from S3 how the artifacts are created and how it gets deployed. All right, so let's start. Now, what are we going to create? So in S3 bucket, the resource name that we are going to use is, of course, AWS underscore S3, 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 S3 bucket. Okay, S3 bucket. And I'll give the name S3 bucket. The bucket name. Now I'll create a variable file, and in that I'll give this. So I'll go to variables file, right? And under variables file, I want to create that actually bucket. So what I'll do is instead of writing it over there, I'll just create here. So first thing is the S3 bucket, the name that we gave. Okay. Description, I'll mention this is sorry, S3 bucket for artifacts and build. Type string and default will be we give the name as S3 demo. S3 demo. We'll have to use some unique name because these names need to be unique. If it is already used by someone, it will not allow that name to be created. So we'll think of something with a number uh, S3 bucket Terraform -1. Okay, just to keep it unique, I'm giving one. And then what we'll do is we'll also create. So what do we want to store in the S3 bucket, right? So we want to store a zip file. I'll create a zip file. I've not yet created. I'll show you how to create that. And I'll give the name S3 code zip. Okay, naming convention so that it's easy to identify what exactly this variable is doing. S3 code zip file for storage. Type again string and our default value will be So I've given this name raw data application folder, and we'll need the zip. So I'll mention the zip as a name. Okay. Now what we are going to do. So I think these are the only two things we need for S3 bucket and the zip file. Yep. Now I'll create an output as well. What we need an output, right, to identify what exactly has been created. So in output, what we are going to do is we just need an ARN. You know what ARN means, right? And for Amazon AWS, ARN stands for Amazon Resource Name, right? You need a unique reference to identify each of the resource that you create on AWS, right? And you need to specify a resource so unambiguously across all of the AWS resources that you create, such as creating policies, any SQL databases, any APIs, etc. So to identify that uniquely in an unambiguous way, it's always good to use the ARN. Okay, coming back to the code where I was. Yeah, I was creating an output file. So in output, I'll give the name S3 bucket object ARN. You remember why we need output, right? I told you that output is always helpful if you want to use these values and expose it somewhere to another automated tools, then you will need these. And what is it? ARN. Okay, and we also need Dynamo. So I'll create. Okay, now there's one more thing that we'll have to do. So for S3 bucket to store anything, we also need to create an bucket object ARN. Now this bucket object ARN is it will store some when you store the to tell you in very simple terms, right? Take S3 itself, you treat that as a container, and within that container, you have files, that is objects. So these objects are nothing but files, and the bucket itself is nothing but a container, kind of a folder. So for now, to understand, because the context of this video is more on the Terraform, not on details on AWS resources, but however, just for the understanding, I thought I'll let you know what exactly I'm trying to do over here. So I need to create an ARN. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll create a name S3 bucket object ARN description S3 bucket. Now here the value will be, right? What is the value that we are going to provide over here? It will be the combination of the bucket name and the object name. So that means it should go in the form of a path. How does the system understand and what path are your objects lying and under what container these objects are? So you have to give that whole path, and that path is nothing going to be but going to be a value. So in this case, how we'll write this is, of course, you know how this works. So I'll, this is the syntax. You will find this syntax. So don't worry about this. So this is the bucket path that I'll provide dot and my bucket name. Not sure why it is not populating that. However, that's fine. And under that bucket, we'll need to find our object, right? So object again we'll put it in the same manner. AWS underscore S3 underscore object. Right. So the first was bucket, that is a container, and then the object. So that becomes our whole path, and that's how Terraform will understand that under this particular container, these are the objects that we deployed, and it will show you the ARN of that object or the ID of that object. So that's all we need to do. Fine. I think we are done. Okay. Anything else? So we are done. I don't think in variables we need to define anything else. Yeah. So let's go back to S3 and let's create our code for S3. So now we have created a variable file. So where dot S3 bucket where, and then we'll just give a tag, and the name will be the same. It will keep the same, right? I mean, where dot S3 bucket. Okay. I can call these variables as a reference anywhere. Next resource that we need to create is the ACL. So we'll need the bucket ACL. Now what is ACL and why do we need it? So basically, if you go in S3, you need to you need to enable some access to the buckets, right? And also the objects within that bucket. Now, don't be confused between what these, so ACL stands for control list, right? Access control list. Now, access control list and policies are two different things. Policies is at the level of a bucket and not to the objects itself within the bucket. But ACL controls the access not only just the bucket but also at the level of objects. So that's the difference between control list and policies. So we'll need to create a control list as well, and that's what I'm trying to do now. So the resource name for that will be AWS underscore S3 underscore. Let me write again. I think it's more easy when it populates. 3 underscore bucket ACL. There you go. You can't remember all these names, right? So you need some suggestions like this. So please make sure that if you are using a Visual Studio Editor, do install the Terraform plugin, right? Which I showed you. ACL, right? That's it. Plugins I showed you, right? From here you can install the extensions, the plugins. This is the one that I've installed, HashiCorp Terraform, if you, for your knowledge, right? Next, description. Sorry, here we have. So I'm also referring to Terraform.io website, right? For all of these, how exactly is the sequence and what do we need. So that is always a good reference. If you don't remember, I honestly I don't remember everything, but so I have to refer to the site. And our access will be private. Okay. Now you may choose how you want to give and define the access, but for this example and demonstration, I'll keep it private. Then what if you so private? Now then what we need to create is I need to block the public access and I have to give the versioning also in S3. And then we'll create the objects. Now I don't want to type the code, I'll just copy paste. I've already written that. Okay, just to make it save some time. I'll just explain to you what I've done. So this resource is to block the public access, right? So block public ACLs true, public policy true, ignore public ACLs true, and restrict public ACLs true, right? So I just want to block every access to it. That's all I'm defining over here. That's one resource type. Another is the versioning, right? Every time the artifacts are there, right? You need a version which is the latest version of the artifacts that are getting built. So that's one another resource. And last is the object itself, right? Which are nothing but the files, the zip file that we are going to create, right? Now, if you remember, I created this variable, right? This is the variable that I created for a zip file. And that zip file will be this file. I'll show you where I've created this file. Okay. And this is the E tag. Only keep in mind that for Terraform, we need this checksum file MD5, which I have defined over here. And that's a variant of hashing the contents of the file. So that's how we need to define because the file only accepts UTF-8 text, right? And that's why we have to use that. But however, in some laptops or MacBooks, you will when you this checksum runs into memory errors, right? So be mindful if you are creating if the file size is larger, it runs into some memory issues. I had encountered that. But the only thing that I could figure out from when I tried to research is because of this checksum. Okay. I don't know. I've not further tried out this, but just for your knowledge, I thought I'll let you guys know. Okay, so that's all we need. And what I'll do is will finish DynamoDB as well, right? So DynamoDB will very simply will just provision the DynamoDB in that simple resource AWS underscore DynamoDB table. We are going to create a table. And the table name that we give is Dynamo table. Okay, and the name of the table will be Dynamo demo data. Billing mode. Now these are all the parameters that you have to provide. Okay, uh, I just picked it up, right? I'll just copy paste just to save time. This is a standard. When you are creating a DynamoDB, just make sure this is how it is. You'll need these parameters. So there's not much to explain over here. The only thing that I'll do additionally is I'll create a tag here. Okay. And the name I'll provide is, I'll use the same name, Dynamo demo data. Okay. So this is what we are creating: the write capacity, the read capacity, hash key. These are the fields. You can take this as a field. So timestamp and device ID. These are the two fields I'm creating. Now, how Dynamo works, the NoSQL is a concept of NoSQL, right? So it's different from a normal RDBMS database. And these are the attributes that I have to define for Dynamo. You can refer to AWS documentation to understand more if you are interested in Dynamo. That's it. And then I'll create an output. Again, for these, I need an output what Dynamo has been created. So we'll just have an ARN created for this. Dynamo DB ARN. That's all. Description, the Dynamo DB ARN name, and the value AWS Dynamo. This is the table name will be our value. We need the ARN, so I'll select ARN. Cool. That's all. And what else? Are we missing anything? Done anything on variables? Variables. So I don't think we need anything. DynamoDB S3 TF. Okay, fine. So I think from Terraform template perspective, we are done. Now let me explain you how the code part works. So I've created this folder over here in this main folder. I've created these are the files which you can see, which we are working on currently, and I've created the key pair that we created. I showed you in the previous video, and this is one extra folder I created for source. Now, what this source has, you can ignore this lambda and index. Right now, it's not relevant. In this raw data application, we have scripts. Okay, app start, app stop. Okay. Now, uh, remember one thing. Sorry. Remember one thing that in AWS, there is something where you have to create appspec.yaml. You see this file? Okay. Now this file is required because this is where you will actually define your hooks. Okay, and these hooks are nothing but series of events that describes how a particular task, in this case the deployment, right, is going to be accomplished, and it allows you to control the actions that are going to run or perform at different stages of the life cycle of your deployment. Now, what this abstract.yaml has is it contains the mappings. Okay. Now, I'll show you. Okay. Now, what these mappings are. So, if you see, let me open that code for you. Now, if you see here, okay, sorry. If you see here, these are the hooks that we have to define. Now, this you have to define. If you just search out, you will find this code. This is standard coding. So, you'll find this anywhere on Google if you try to search out. Now there is a sequence of events that happen. So when a deployment starts, what it does is first, if your application is running, it will stop the application. Then it will check whether the necessary installations have been done or not. So if it finds that that is a stage of before install. So at that stage, it will then go to the scripts folder and it will run whatever the prerequisites that are required to be installed. Then once that is done, it will go to the next stage, that is after install. Now the after install stage, it will try to do and go to the location and do what the actions that are required to run post installation. Once everything is done, then the application will start. And this is the stage where your deployment will happen, right? Code build and deployment will happen. Once that is done, that means now the next sequence, the next stage is you have to start your application, right? And then whatever actions you want to set. So these are the hooks that we have to define, and that happens in abstract.yaml. Now this can be also be a JSON. I've created a YAML because I found it easier to do this, and I found a solution on this, so I used YAML. Simple as that. You can choose to run using JSON also. Within this also you can define JSON. So YAML is nothing but on top of JSON. So you can choose to work on both. And the scripts folder, what it contains, right? It's app start, app stop. We're not using this for this example, like I told you. I just want to show you what exactly it does. Now, just check this out. I'm checking for this folder, right? This is a normal Unix shell scripting, right? -D checks for this directory, whether it exists or not. If it exists, fine. If it doesn't exist, then it will sudo and it will create the directory for you. That's it. And these are just normal commands that I'm running. I'll move. So in my path on EC2 instance under home, under Ubuntu, I'll move this folder, right? I'll create a folder and I'll move this file into this folder. That's all I'm doing. And this is a requirements.txt. Requirements.txt, I just need one library, Boto3. That's all. Okay. And pre-install is nothing but my Python and pip3 installation. So these are the standard files, set of files that I've created for you. And I'll upload these files and you can just simply use those files. Okay. Now coming back to, I'll have to zip this now. So remember one thing, if you are using Mac, right? On Mac, if you try to create a zip directly from here, okay, it creates a problem. Why? What problem is it creates another additional file as macx. Under that, you will see one more entry of this, and this conflicts when you actually do the code deployment. So to avoid that conflict, what I'm going to do is I'm going to zip it through command line. Now, currently, I am into my home directory. This is my working directory. Okay, and this is where I am. Now, what was I doing? Okay, so I want to create a zip. Okay, and the zip that I have to create is under this folder, source folder. Okay, and under source folder, I have this raw data application. Okay, now this is a folder and I want to zip this folder. So what I want to zip is I want to zip the files that are there in this folder. And these are the files that I want to zip. Okay, not everything. So what I'll do is I'll say zip -r -x raw data. What's the name I gave to the zip file there? I had given some name, right? Variables. Okay, this is the name I had given. Okay, so I'll use this name. Okay, raw-data-application.zip. Okay, fine. Sorry. Right, so I've added these files. And now if I check, I have a zip file. Fine. So I think that's all we'll need. My Finder, and I'll do is I have created this zip file. I'll copy this zip file in my source folder, and I'm going to delete all of these. I don't need any of these now. I just need the raw data application. That's all I need in the source. So now I'll run Terraform init. Now it's initializing Terraform plan. You don't have to run the initialization again and again. So if you make any changes, just run the plan and apply. That's it. So you'll see we have S3 bucket ARN, we have object ARN, we have SNS, and we also have DynamoDB ARN. Now this all this will be known. The ARN names will be known only after we apply. So now I'll run Terraform apply. Okay. We'll wait for that yes message for value. Okay. Done. Now we'll also go to our AWS site and we'll keep checking. So let's go to S3. Okay, we see the bucket has been created here. Okay, you see all these resources are getting created. Perfectly fine. And if I go inside the bucket, you will see this raw data application.zip. Remember this zip we had created. So these are our artifacts that are getting uploaded and stored into our S3 bucket, this bucket. This is the name of the bucket that we provided. And our EC2 instance server is still launching, so we'll also check. Okay, let's check Dynamo. You'll see our DynamoDB is also created. Go to tables, and there you see Dynamo demo data. This is the name we gave, right? All right, so it's all created perfectly fine, and you'll also see our EC2 instance created. It's running perfect. So that's all about Terraform. And if you want to explore more, definitely go to terraform.io. That's the Bible. Follow that, and you'll be able to uh, work on any of the cloud platforms or providers that you want to. So this video is more about talking about Terraform, and you can reference this video if you want to start working on it. I'm sure this will help you to learn more and explore more on Terraform. So thank you guys, and see you in our next video for another topic.